Aliens sent an SOS. The Deathworlders fleet answered with total war. The desperate signal the Xanthari had been a peaceful species for over 3,000 years. Their civilization spread across 12 star systems built on trade, diplomacy, and scientific advancement. They had no standing military, only a modest security force meant to handle pirates and natural disasters. War was something they read about in ancient history texts, a relic of their primitive past that they had proudly left behind. That pride died the day the Valdrak Empire arrived. Ambassador. Thalos stood in the ruins of what had once been the central commerce hub on Xanthar Prime. Smoke rose from collapsed buildings while emergency crews searched desperately for survivors. His forearms trembled as he watched rescue workers pull bodies from the rubble. 3 days ago, this plaza had been filled with merchants, students, and families enjoying the afternoon sun. Now it was a graveyard. The Valdrak had given no warning. Their fleet had simply appeared at the edge of the system, broadcast a declaration of conquest, and begun orbital bombardment. The Xanthari defense satellites designed to deflect asteroids and space debris had been obliterated within minutes. Their security ships, meant for customs enforcement, had been swatted aside like insects. In 72 hours, the Valdrak had seized 4 Xanthari colonies and killed over 2 billion civilians. Thalos pressed his communication device with one shaking hand. He had been trying to reach the Galactic Council for 2 days. Surely the great civilizations of the galaxy would not stand by and watch an entire species be destroyed. Surely someone would help. The response finally came through. A holographic image materialized before him, showing Council Representative Morven, a dignified member of the Kelthian Collective. The Kelthians were one of the oldest spacefaring races, known for their wisdom and adherence to galactic law. Ambassador Thalos, Morven said, his tone formal and cold. The Council has reviewed your petition for intervention. And? Thalos felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest. When will the peacekeeping forces arrive? Morven's expression did not change. The Council has determined that military intervention would violate the non-interference directive. The Valdrak Empire is a recognized sovereign power. Their conflict with the Xanthari is an internal matter between 2 independent civilizations. The words hit Thalos like a physical blow. Internal matter? They are committing genocide. Billions of my people are dead or enslaved. The Council sympathizes with your situation, Ambassador. However, the principles that maintain galactic stability must be preserved. We cannot set a precedent of interfering in territorial disputes. The Valdrak have historical precedent for their expansion patterns. This is simply the natural order of things. Natural order? Thalos felt something break inside him. You are telling me that watching my species die is the natural order? I am telling you that the strong have always prevailed over the weak. This has been the way of the galaxy for millions of years. The Xanthari chose to remain without military power. That was your decision, and now you face the consequences. I am sorry, Ambassador, but the Council's decision is final. The communication ended. Thalos stood alone in the ruins, the weight of his entire civilization's extinction pressing down on him. The Galactic Council, the great arbiters of peace and justice, had condemned his people to death because it was inconvenient to help them. Dr. Kelvin, the Xanthari's chief scientist, approached through the rubble. His face was covered in dust, and one of his arms hung at an odd angle, clearly broken. Thalos, we detected another Valdrak fleet entering the Velor system. Our remaining colonies will fall within a week. Do we have an answer from the Council? Thalos could not find the words. He simply shook his head. Kelvin's legs buckled, and he sat heavily on a chunk of broken concrete. Then we are finished. 3,000 years of peace, of culture, of scientific achievement, all ending because we believed civilization meant more than military might. There must be someone, Thalos whispered. Someone in this vast galaxy who will help us. Kelvin pulled out a data tablet, his hands moving mechanically across its surface. I have been monitoring all known spacefaring civilizations within reasonable distance. The older species follow the Council's lead. The younger ones lack the military capability to challenge the Valdrak. He paused, staring at something on his screen. Wait, there is one possibility, though it is likely futile. Who? The humans. They are a very new species, barely 100 years into interstellar travel. They have established several colony worlds on the far edge of explored space. Our automated long-range sensors detected their presence 6 months ago, but we never made formal contact. Thalos felt his hope crumble further. A species younger than ours with even less military experience. How could they possibly help? Kelvin's expression was strange, caught between fear and something else. Because, Ambassador, the humans come from a Class 12 death world. Their planet is so hostile that no other known species could survive there without significant technological support. The Galactic database classifies them as potential Deathworlders. The term sent a chill through Thalos. Deathworlders were legendary in galactic society, species that evolved on planets so dangerous that survival required extreme adaptability, aggression, and resilience. There had only been 3 confirmed Deathworlder civilizations in recorded history, and all had been exceptionally violent. If they are Deathworlders, would they not simply conquer us as well? Perhaps. But we are dead anyway if we do nothing. At least this is a chance. Kelvin stood, wincing from his broken arm. I can modify our last long-range transmission array to send a message to their nearest colony. It will take everything we have left. Thalos looked around at the devastation surrounding them. His people were dying. His children were somewhere in the chaos, possibly already dead. The galaxy had turned its back on the Xanthari. What did they have to lose? Send the message. 3 days later and 700 light-years away, Commander Sarah Chen sat in the command center of humanity's frontier station Osiris. The station orbited New Vancouver, one of Earth's furthest colony worlds. It was boring duty, monitoring shipping lanes and watching for the occasional pirate activity. Sarah had been stationed here for 8 months, and the most exciting thing that had happened was a false alarm about a comet. That changed when Lieutenant Marcus Webb called out from the communications station. Commander, we are receiving a transmission on the emergency band. It is alien origin, heavily damaged, but the computer is translating now. Sarah moved to stand behind Webb, watching as text scrolled across his screen. Play it. The message was audio only, crackling with interference. A voice spoke in halting English, clearly struggling with an unfamiliar language learned from intercepted human broadcasts. People of Earth, I am Ambassador Thalos of the Xanthari Sovereignty. If anyone receives this message, please understand we are dying. An empire called the Valdrak has invaded our worlds. Billions are dead. We begged the Galactic Council for help. They refused. They said our extinction is the natural order. Sarah felt her hands clench into fists. The message continued. I know humanity is new to the stars. I know we have no right to ask anything of you. But I am a father, and my children are hiding in the ruins of our capital city. I am an ambassador who failed his people. I am a desperate being with nowhere else to turn. Please, if there is any mercy in your species, help us. We are located at coordinates. The message dissolved into static, then cut out completely. The command center had gone completely silent. Every officer present had stopped working to listen. Sarah looked at their faces and saw her own fury reflected back at her. Webb, get me Earth Command. Priority Alpha Channel. Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate response. She turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Ramos, pull up everything we have on the Valdrak Empire. I want to know exactly who we are dealing with. Commander, Webb said carefully. Earth Command will want to know our recommendation. What should I tell them? Sarah stared at the star map showing the Xanthari territory. She thought about the voice in that message. About a father trying to protect his children while his entire civilization burned. She thought about humanity's own bloody history. About all the times people had stood by and done nothing while atrocities unfolded. Tell them that the Valdrak Empire just made the worst mistake in their existence. They found a species begging for help, and they are about to learn what happens when you threaten innocent people within range of Earth. Within 12 hours, every human colony, outpost, and station received the same message from Earth's United Defense Council. The transmission was simple and direct. Humanity was going to war. When Earth goes to war, the Valdrak High Commander Zarketh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Domination, and reviewed the latest reports with satisfaction. The Xanthari resistance had finally collapsed on the Velor colony. Over 400 million civilians had been processed into slave labor camps. Their ships had been scrapped for materials, their technology absorbed into Valdrak systems, their culture erased. This campaign has been efficient, his second officer reported. The Xanthari lack any meaningful military infrastructure. We have secured 7 systems with minimal losses. Intelligence suggests their homeworld will surrender within 10 days. Zarketh nodded, his massive frame radiating confidence. The Valdrak were a warrior culture, bred and trained for conquest over thousands of generations. They stood over 2.5 meters tall with thick armored skin, powerful limbs, and a natural hierarchy built on combat prowess. Conquering weaker species was not just their profession but their purpose. "What of the Galactic Council?" Zarketh asked. "They issued a formal condemnation, nothing more. The older civilizations will not intervene. They never do." Then we proceed to Phase 2. Once the Xanthari are fully pacified, we will expand into the next sector. Intelligence has identified several primitive colonies belonging to a species called humans. They appear to be a recent addition to spacefaring civilization, barely worth the effort to conquer. Should we send a scouting party? No need, they are insignificant. We will absorb them after we finish here. That assessment changed dramatically 6 hours later when the human fleet arrived. They appeared at the edge of the Valor system without warning, emerging from faster-than-light travel in a formation that immediately struck Zarketh as wrong. There were only 40 human vessels, a laughably small force compared to his 200 warships currently occupying Xanthari space. But their approach was aggressive, almost reckless. They were not advancing cautiously like a military force assessing an enemy. They were charging forward like predators who had spotted prey. "Hail them," Zarketh ordered. "Let us see what these primitives want." The communication channel opened and a human face appeared on the main screen. She was a female with dark skin and sharp eyes that held no fear, only cold calculation. Her uniform bore insignia that marked her as a high-ranking officer. "This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You are Commander Zarketh of the Valdrak Empire, correct?" "I am High Commander Zarketh, leader of the Valdrak 7th Conquest Fleet. You will withdraw immediately, human. This sector is now Valdrak territory." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "No." The simple refusal caught Zarketh off guard. "You do not understand your position. I have 200 warships. You have 40. Your technology is inferior. Your forces are inexperienced. You cannot win this engagement." "You are probably right about all of that," Chen said calmly. "But here is what you need to understand about humans, Commander. We come from a planet where everything tries to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, even the plants are poisonous. We spent 200,000 years fighting to survive on a world that actively wanted us dead. We learned something important during that time. And what is that? That sometimes you don't need to be stronger to win. You just need to be willing to do whatever it takes, and you need to make victory so expensive for your enemy that they break before you do." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "The Xanthari asked us for help. We came. You have 10 minutes to withdraw your forces and release all prisoners. If you refuse, we will remove you by force." Zarketh laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through his bridge. "You offer me an ultimatum? You truly are primitives if you think 40 ships can challenge 200. Very well, human. I will teach you the price of arrogance. All vessels, engage and destroy the human fleet." The Valdrak warships moved forward in perfect formation, their weapon systems charging. They had fought 100 battles, conquered 50 species, and never lost a major engagement. They were the finest military force in this sector of the galaxy. They had never fought Deathworlders before. The human ships did not retreat. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the Valdrak formation at speeds that should have been suicidal. No sane commander would charge straight into a superior force. But as Zarketh was about to learn, humans had a very different definition of sanity. Captain James Rodriguez commanded the TDF destroyer Relentless Fury. His ship was smaller than the Valdrak cruisers, less armored, with weaker shields. But it was fast, maneuverable, and crewed by people who had grown up on a planet where survival meant adapting faster than your environment could kill you. "All hands, this is the captain," James spoke into the ship-wide communication system. "Remember your training. Remember why we are here. Those bastards killed billions of innocent people, and they are going to learn that humanity does not tolerate bullies. Attack pattern Omega. Show them what Earth sends to monsters." The Relentless Fury and her sister ships dove into the Valdrak formation like sharks entering a school of fish. They did not engage at long range where Valdrak's superior firepower would dominate. Instead, they closed to point-blank range, using their superior speed to dart between enemy vessels, firing at critical systems, engines, weapon batteries, and shield generators. It was chaos. It was brutal. It was completely unlike any form of warfare the Valdrak had ever experienced. They are inside our minimum weapon range, a Valdrak tactical officer shouted. Our main guns cannot track targets this close. Zarketh watched in growing disbelief as human ships wove through his formation, unleashing devastating close-range attacks. When Valdrak vessels tried to regroup, the humans launched something new. Thousands of small attack drones poured from the human ships, each one barely larger than a fighter craft, each carrying enough explosives to cripple a cruiser. The drones swarmed the Valdrak vessels like angry insects, overwhelming point defense systems through sheer numbers. Individually, they were insignificant threats. Collectively, they were a nightmare. Explosions rippled across the Valdrak formation as drones found their targets. This is not warfare, Zarketh's second officer said, his voice shaking. This is savagery. They fight without honor, without rules. Then we will crush them with overwhelming force. All vessels focus fire on their flagship, kill their commander, and they will break. Every Valdrak ship in range turned its weapons toward Admiral Chen's command carrier. The firepower was staggering, enough to vaporize a small moon. The human carrier's shields flared, buckled, and failed. Armor boiled away under the sustained assault. The ship was dying, but Admiral Chen did not retreat. Instead, her voice came across all frequencies, human and Valdrak alike. All ships execute Protocol Hornet's Nest. Make them pay for every meter. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations. The human fleet, outnumbered and outgunned, did not attempt to disengage. Instead, they intensified their attack. Ships with failing engines rammed Valdrak vessels. Damaged human destroyers used their last moments to position themselves as shields for their sister ships. When one human vessel's weapons failed, it detonated its own reactor in the middle of the Valdrak formation, taking 3 enemy cruisers with it in the explosion. Dr. Kelvin watched the battle from a hidden bunker on Velor's surface, monitoring the engagement through salvaged Xanthari sensors. What he witnessed defied everything he understood about military tactics and self-preservation. They are losing ships, he whispered to Ambassador Thelos, who stood beside him, but they are not stopping. Even when their vessels are crippled, they find ways to keep fighting. What kind of species does this? A species from a death world, Thelos replied quietly. A species that learns survival means never giving up, no matter the cost. Captain Rodriguez's ship had taken critical damage. His engine room was on fire, life support was failing, and half his crew was dead or wounded. But the relentless Fury still had weapons, and Rodriguez still had a target. All remaining crew abandoned ship. Get to the escape pods, he ordered. Captain, you need to evacuate too, his executive officer protested. Someone needs to steer, and this ship has one more kill in her. Rodriguez targeted a Valdrak battleship that was hammering the human carrier. Set collision course. Maximum remaining speed. Get out now. That is an order. His crew evacuated, tears streaming down their faces as they fled to the escape pods. Rodriguez stayed at the helm, nursing his dying ship toward the enemy battleship. The Valdrak saw him coming and tried to maneuver, but they were too slow, too arrogant in their assumption that no one would sacrifice themselves in such a manner. The relentless Fury struck the Valdrak battleship amidships at 1/10 the speed of light. The impact released energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. Both vessels disintegrated instantly, taking over 5,000 Valdrak warriors with them. Captain James Rodriguez died as he lived, protecting others and refusing to surrender. Zarketh stared at the expanding debris field where his battleship had been. In 30 seconds, he had lost one of his most powerful vessels to a crippled enemy destroyer. The human captain had turned his dying ship into a weapon, sacrificing himself without hesitation. High Commander, we have lost 47 vessels. The humans have lost 23. They are still attacking. They are not retreating. Zarketh had fought many battles. He understood tactics, strategy, and the calculus of warfare. But this was something different. These humans fought like cornered predators, like creatures that had evolved to survive impossible odds through sheer stubbornness and violence. All vessels, withdraw to defensive positions. We need to reassess. A new alarm blared across his bridge. High Commander, we have multiple enemy contacts emerging from FTL. Unknown configuration. Zarketh's blood went cold. More human ships materialized at the edge of the system. Not 40 this time, not even 100. Over 300 vessels appeared, ranging from massive carriers to small frigates. Every single one had weapons armed and shields at maximum. Admiral Chen's voice came through again, calm and implacable. I told you, Commander. You need to make victory so expensive that your enemy breaks first. The first wave was just to get your attention. This is the actual fleet. You have 60 seconds to surrender, or we will destroy every single ship you have in this system. For the first time in his military career, High Commander Zarketh felt genuine fear. These humans were not a primitive species stumbling through space. They were apex predators from a world that had forged them into something terrifying. They had lost thousands of their own people in the initial engagement and responded by bringing overwhelming force. What are your terms? Zarketh asked, the words bitter in his mouth. Unconditional surrender. You will release every Xanthari prisoner immediately. You will withdraw from all occupied systems. You will provide full intelligence on your military capabilities and expansion plans. And you will do it all right now, because if you make me ask twice, there will not be enough left of your fleet to fill a cargo container. Zarketh looked at his tactical display. His fleet was battered, disorganized, and surrounded. The human reinforcements outnumbered his remaining forces. His warriors were shaken, having witnessed an enemy that refused to die according to any rational calculation. He gave the only order that made sense. All Valdrak forces cease fire. We surrender. The price of threatening Earth, the Galactic Council Chamber, had stood for over 50,000 years, a monument to civilization, diplomacy, and the peaceful resolution of conflicts. Representatives from 200 species gathered in its vast amphitheater, each member occupying a designated platform that floated above the central floor. The architecture was designed to inspire awe and humility, reminding all present that they were part of something greater than themselves. Today, that chamber was filled with unprecedented tension. Ambassador Thalos stood at the speaker's podium, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of openness. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Velor, and the galaxy was still reeling from what humanity had done. The Xanthari diplomat looked different now. The broken, desperate being who had sent that final plea for help was gone. In his place stood someone harder, someone who had witnessed the impossible and survived. Honored council members, Thalos began, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. 3 weeks ago I stood before you and begged for help. My people were being exterminated. Billions had died. Our civilization, which had existed peacefully for 3 millennia, was being erased from existence. And you told me this was the natural order of things. Council Representative Morvan shifted uncomfortably in his floating platform. Around the chamber, other representatives avoided Thalos's gaze. You said that the strong have always dominated the weak. You said that my people's extinction was a consequence of our choice to remain without military power. You said that intervention would violate your principles of non-interference. Thalos's voice grew stronger, carrying an edge that had never been there before. You were wrong. A holographic display materialized above the central floor, showing footage from the Battle of Velor. The council members watched as human ships charged into Valdrak formations, as Captain Rodriguez turned his dying vessel into a weapon, as Admiral Chen's reinforcements emerged to surround the enemy fleet. Humanity is new to the stars. They have been exploring space for barely a century. Their technology is less advanced than most species here. Their fleets are smaller. Their resources more limited. By every measure your ancient wisdom values, they should have stayed out of our conflict. Thalos paused, letting the weight of his words settle, but they came anyway. They came because someone asked for help and they decided that was enough. Representative Morvan finally spoke, his tone defensive. Ambassador Thalos, the Council acknowledges that humanity's intervention was unexpected. However, their methods were extremely violent. They lost thousands of their own people in a battle that could have been avoided through diplomatic channels. Surely you do not celebrate such carnage. Diplomatic channels? Thalos's voice turned sharp. The same diplomatic channels that told me to accept my species' extinction? The same wisdom that has allowed empires like the Valdrak to conquer and enslave for thousands of years because intervening would be inconvenient. He shook his head. No, representative. Humanity showed me something you all forgot. Sometimes peace is not the absence of violence. Sometimes peace requires people willing to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The holographic display shifted, showing the aftermath of the battle. Xanthari prisoners being released from Valdrak slave camps, families reuniting, refugee ships returning to their worlds under human military escort. Then it showed something that made several council members recoil. human burial ceremonies for the fallen, 3,000 flag-draped caskets being sent home to Earth and her colonies, each one containing someone who had died fighting for strangers they had never met. They paid in blood for us, Thalos said quietly. They asked for nothing in return except that we rebuild and prosper. That is not savagery, Honored Council. That is civilization. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen entered the council chamber through a side entrance flanked by 2 human officers. She wore her dress uniform, its dark blue fabric decorated with medals and insignia, but it was her eyes that drew attention, sharp and unyielding as she walked to stand beside Thalos. The council did not invite you to speak, Admiral Chen, Morven said stiffly. I am not asking permission, Sarah replied flatly. Earth has information the council needs to hear, whether you want to hear it or not. She activated her own holographic display. The image showed a star map of explored space with various territories marked in different colors. Red sections indicated Valdrak-controlled space. Blue showed human territory. Green represented Xanthari systems. And scattered throughout were dozens of other colors representing different civilizations. When we captured Valdrak intelligence during the Battle of Valor, we found their long-term expansion plans. Sarah highlighted several star systems. They were not just targeting the Xanthari. Over the next 50 years, they planned to conquer or subjugate 17 different civilizations. Some of them are represented in this chamber right now. Murmurs rippled through the council. Several representatives leaned forward, studying the map with new attention. But here is the interesting part, Sarah continued. The Valdrak did not make these plans in secret. They filed official territorial claims with this council for each of these systems, and the council approved every single one, because as Representative Morven explained to Ambassador Thalos, this is simply how the galaxy works. The strong dominate the weak. This is the natural order. Morven's expression hardened. The council operates under principles established over millions of years. We cannot intervene in every conflict without creating chaos. No, you created a system where aggression is rewarded and asking for help is pointless. Sarah's voice cut through the chamber like a knife. You built a galaxy where species like the Valdrak can commit genocide with your implicit approval, as long as they fill out the proper paperwork first. And what would you have us do, Admiral? Send peacekeeping forces to every border dispute? Police the entire galaxy? That is not feasible. I am not asking you to police the galaxy. I am telling you that Earth will do it if you will not. Sarah let that statement hang in the air for a moment. The Valdrak Empire has been completely disarmed. We have dismantled their military infrastructure, confiscated their weapons, and placed monitoring stations throughout their territory. They will remain under Terran oversight for the next 50 years. Any attempt to rebuild their military or threaten another species will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. You cannot occupy an entire empire, a council member protested. You lack the resources, the personnel. We will find them, Sarah interrupted. Earth has 20 billion people who are very, very motivated to ensure that what happened to the Xanthari never happens again. We will build more ships, train more soldiers, and establish bases wherever they are needed. Because here's what you all need to understand about humans. She brought up a new image, showing Earth in all its terrifying beauty. Hurricanes that could flatten cities, volcanoes that could alter the climate, predators that could kill with teeth, claws, or venom, diseases that had killed millions throughout human history, and yet humanity had not just survived but thrived. We come from a death world. Everything on our planet tried to kill us for 200,000 years. We survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and disasters that would have ended most civilizations. We fought wars against each other that killed tens of millions, and we came back from them stronger. We learned something important during all that suffering. Sarah's expression was carved from stone. We learned that you never abandon people in need. We learned that sometimes the only thing standing between innocent people and monsters is someone willing to fight the monsters. And we learned that when you push a species from Earth, when you threaten our friends, when you make us choose between peace and protecting others, we will choose to fight every single time. A new voice entered the conversation. Valdrak High Commander Zarketh appeared via holographic projection, broadcasting from a detention facility on a human-controlled station. He looked diminished, stripped of his armor and rank, but his intelligence remained sharp. I was asked to address the council, Zarketh said, his tone surprisingly calm, to explain what happened from a Valdrak perspective. I will be brief. We underestimated the humans catastrophically. We assumed they were primitive because their technology was less advanced. We assumed they were weak because they had limited military experience. We assumed wrong. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The humans do not fight like civilized species. They do not calculate acceptable losses or strategic withdrawals. They fight like they are still on their death world, still battling to survive against impossible odds. When we destroyed their ships, they rammed us with the debris. When we killed their soldiers, more appeared, refusing to retreat. When we thought we had won, they brought reinforcements and surrounded us. Sarketh's expression held something like respect. The Council believes the galaxy operates under natural laws where the strong dominate the weak. Humans believe that anyone who threatens the innocent deserves to be destroyed, regardless of how strong they are. They will cross light years, sacrifice thousands of their own, and fight until nothing remains rather than accept injustice. That is not primitive behavior. That is terrifying. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. High Commander Sarketh has agreed to provide testimony about Valdrak operations in exchange for fair treatment of his people. He understands that Earth is not interested in revenge. We are interested in justice and ensuring this never happens again. Ambassador Thalos spoke again, addressing the assembled council. Humanity has offered the Zenthari a formal alliance. They call it the Terran-Zenthari Compact. Under its terms, Earth will help us rebuild our military, train our people in self-defense, and provide protection until we can stand on our own. But more than that, they have opened this alliance to any species who wishes to join. Any species? Representative Morvan looked alarmed. That would create a military coalition outside Council authority. Exactly, Sarah said bluntly. Because your authority failed the Zenthari, your authority has failed dozens of species over thousands of years. So Earth is offering an alternative. Join us, contribute to mutual defense, and know that if someone threatens you, help will actually come. The implications rippled through the chamber. A military alliance led by humanity would fundamentally change the galactic power structure. The Council's influence, built on diplomatic tradition and carefully maintained neutrality, would be challenged by an organization built on mutual defense and willingness to use force. This is unacceptable, Morvan said sharply. You cannot simply impose a new order on the galaxy because you disagree with established principles. Watch us, Sarah replied. Earth did not ask permission to save the Zenthari. We did not ask permission to dismantle the Valdrak military, and we are not asking permission now. We are informing you that things are changing. The galaxy has operated under your rules for millions of years, and those rules allowed genocide to become routine. That ends today. She pulled up a final image, showing a simple message in multiple languages. None stand alone. The Terran Compact protects all. Below it were two signatures, Admiral Sarah Chen and Ambassador Thalos, followed by space for others. Any species that wants protection, any civilization that fears becoming the next Zenthari, you know where to find us. Earth does not ask for tribute or submission. We ask only that you stand with us when others need help. Together we will build a galaxy where asking for help is not futile, where the strong protect the weak, and where empires that profit from suffering learn the price of threatening those we protect. Thalos stepped forward one last time. The Council once told me that my species' extinction was the natural order. Humanity taught me that nothing is natural about abandoning others to die. I would rather stand with Deathworlders who fight for justice than with ancient civilizations who watch genocide and call it wisdom. The Council chamber erupted into arguments, with representatives debating furiously. Some called the Terran Compact dangerous. Others quietly activated their communication systems, already sending inquiries to Earth about membership. The old order was fracturing and everyone present knew it. Admiral Chen left the podium without waiting for a response. She had said what needed to be said. As she walked toward the exit, Thalos caught up with her. Admiral, thank you. For everything. For coming when no one else would. For fighting when we had given up hope. For showing the galaxy that someone cares. Sarah stopped and looked at the Zenthari ambassador. We did not do it for thanks, Ambassador. We did it because it was right. And because 3,000 years ago, humanity almost destroyed itself in wars over things that do not matter. We learned the hard way that the only thing worth fighting for is each other. That is what Deathworlders understand. Survival is not about being the strongest, it is about refusing to let the people around you fall. 6 months later, 47 species had joined the Terran Compact. Earth had established joint defense stations throughout Allied space, trained thousands of new soldiers from dozens of worlds, and began construction on a fleet 3 times larger than their original forces. The Galactic Council issued formal protests and sanctions, which Earth ignored completely. The Valdrek Empire, disarmed and humbled, began the long process of cultural reform under human supervision. Some resisted, clinging to old beliefs about strength and dominance, but many, especially the younger generation, started to question whether conquering others had ever made them truly strong, or just made them bullies. On Zenthar Prime, Dr. Kelvin stood in a reconstructed plaza where families now walked safely, where children played without fear. Human military advisors moved through the streets helping train Zenthari security forces. The 2 species worked side by side, learning from each other. "It is strange," Kelvin said to a human sergeant named Martinez, who was teaching Zenthari officers hand-to-hand combat. 3 months ago, we were pacifists who had never considered violence as a solution. Now we train for war. Have we lost something essential about who we are? Martinez paused, considering the question carefully. "I do not think so, Dr. Kelvin. Learning to fight does not mean abandoning peace. It means being strong enough to protect the peace you built. My grandmother used to say that sheep wish for a world without wolves, but wishing does not make it so. Someone has to be the sheepdog, and humans are the sheepdogs. We are one option, but we would rather teach everyone to be their own sheepdogs. That is what the compact is about, making sure no one has to be helpless, making sure that when the wolves come, someone is ready to fight back." Admiral Chen sat in her office on Earth reviewing reports from across the compact. New members were joining weekly. Training programs were exceeding expectations. The galaxy was changing slowly but undeniably. Her aide entered with a new message. "Admiral, we just received a distress call from the Pelthian Commonwealth. They are under attack by something called the Morvek Swarm. They are requesting immediate assistance." Sarah felt the familiar weight settle on her shoulders. More fighting, more sacrifice, more humans who would not come home. But she also remembered Thalos's voice in that original message, desperate and alone, believing no one would answer. "Alert the 3rd and 7th fleets. Plot a course to Pelthian space. Maximum speed." She stood, reaching for her uniform jacket. "And send a message to the Pelthians. Tell them help is on the way. Tell them they do not stand alone. Tell them Earth is coming. Because that was what Deathworlders did. They answered the call. They fought the monsters. They refused to let good people suffer alone. The galaxy had operated under one set of rules for millions of years, rules that rewarded the strong and abandoned the weak. Humanity had arrived with different rules, and anyone who threatened the innocent would learn the price of making Earth choose between peace and justice. Because when you pushed a Deathworld species, when you threatened their friends, when you made them stand between you and those they protected, humans would show you exactly why Earth's predators learned to fear them. The galaxy was learning that lesson now, and it would never forget.